One, two, three. I hope everyone had a great day, great week, and has enough energy to check something out related to programming. For me, it's the beginning of the week, and it's sort of difficult because previously we had 2 days off and I could do whatever I wanted, and now I need to do some job stuff. Yep, real programming stuff. And in the evening, why not do something for my hobby project, right? Yes. So let's first get back to programming and the sound of rain, right? So the program that I'm working on is called hitboxing. It's all about moving rectangles and trying to check if they collide or not. Because it was previously discussed that it's pretty basic piece of gaming logic, and if you have stuff like collision detection, you can do many interesting things. And if you don't know how this is done, then probably you need either technical guy who would understand all the details, or you need to learn something. Yep. So everything is saved on service called GitHub, and I am using IntelliJ IDE for actually changing the code in the project, because it's just something on Russian, doesn't matter. So the last thing I managed to finish was regarding, so let's run the program and check what is it working or not, right? So last time I checked, there were multiple rectangles that were like staying on a map, and I was moving my square player texture around, and when texture player and standing, sound like this. Yep. So I'm moving this huge player stuff, and if it somehow intersects with the squares, then they change color. Okay, so that's it. The problem was that I could move my player not like horizontally or vertically, but I could also move it using diagonals, like right top or left bottom. And in that case, there is no code logic that would check that my player is actually rotated by 45 degrees, and I should think about keeping this data about is it diagonal or not, and reuse this data later for collision detection. So let's start with what? I use approach where I have a separate data structure that holds all the information about my current player. So these are coordinates that I use for moving around, and when I'm trying to move my player as a reaction to keyboard events and stuff, then I just change the coordinates that I keep in this player sprite thingy. Is it player sprite? Oh, I guess it should be player entity. Yes, circle entity. Sprite is about rendering, not about data. So, first problem that I see is that it's called circle entity, and it's not circle entity. It's definitely a square. So let's go there, and that's the first time you can see that you can use more than one file, at least in this discussion. There is more than one file that is used for internal program logic, because you could see this desktop launcher, it's a separate file, but it sort of does nothing, and it's like pretty generic configuration stuff, like how wide, how high would be the screen, the name, something with it looking properly on Linux, I guess. Yes, then we also checked only this huge file, but for some reason, and in some cases, it would make more sense to create a separate file and keep some data in this separate file. As an example, I have this class called circle entity, because previously I was using these for my player, and I thought that maybe I would have multiple, not players, but something, so I wasn't attaching. So for example, if I would try to make an enemy, it would also be an entity in terms of a program, but wouldn't be a player. So that's why this name is more generic than one specific use case. So it's circle entity, and it's not good enough, and we can right click and refactor, rename. I want it to be square entity, and if we actually let's make it a rectangle entity. If we are making it a rectangle entity, we have coordinates, we definitely have no radius, we should have a rotation, that's correct, we should have some sort of speed, that's correct. So let's do width and width, yes, this height, height. Are you killing me or something? Yes. So here I can see radius that is not used. Let's change it to width. And then I want to add height. Still something is missing, because here I can see width and height. And that's the easy way how we changed this entity, and now we can see one related problem. I guess it is created, like instance of this class is created somewhere, and now it's not working as expected, because there is something like radius only, and now I want to say, for example, width 100 and height also of 100. Nope, no, please. Yes. I can even make it like that. Nice. So this part is solved. What we can see here, set bounds, radius. No, it shouldn't be like that. Yes, it should be something like width divided by half, because previously when I told radius for a circle entity, radius is half of diameter, so it's half of its width of this bound stuff. And here I want to say, I guess, height, and here I want to say again width. Why it's like twice? Exactly. Okay, I guess it's like described in coordinates plus width and height. Okay, now I don't need this doubling stuff. So, what we see now, we still have 9 errors. I guess rendering stuff is fine, but we still need to work with our collision detection, and it was previously based on radius, which makes no sense. It should be better, like player width, and we should say something like player height. Nice, so we have these two variables, but we are not using them. Oh, sheesh. Width half. It seems that we would need only half of it every time. Yep, so we're gonna take this and use it like bam bam. bam, bam. So what I'm doing, this avatar, it's actually an array that describes 4 points, 4 pairs of coordinates. And I should describe these coordinates as they exist in this like gaming dimension. It was previously discussed, like we have this axis of y, its verticality, and axis of x for horizontal movement. And every time we draw something, it should have 4 points, and I should somehow describe all of those points. Previously, I used x and y for position of my player, and it was a center, and used radius to calculate all the angles and angles. It's not an angle, corners of square. Currently, I have no radius anymore because I can make my player actually a rectangle. We'll try it a bit later, but for now, let's get back to the programming stuff. So x, y, x, y, x, y, x, y. This should be left top. This should be right top. This should be right bottom, and this should be left bottom. Yes, so they go like if you draw with a pencil, for example. So I've made this player with half, and now I want to use this. It's slightly unreadable, but it should be like this. If you're not sure that your code will be really readable without additional documentation, I would say, you can always leave some text marks like left bottom corner. Nope. Are you seriously? Right bottom corner. This is right top corner, and this one is left top corner. Yep, left top, right bottom, left bottom. Yep. So in clockwise manner we described 4 points, and if you would draw a line and would like close the line with the last point and the first one, you would get a region that describes how much space my player actually uses in this gaming dimension. We do the same stuff for squares that we described earlier, and that's the way we get data for calculating our intersections. So that's nice if everything is correct. Oh no, something is still missing. Let's check it. Calculate player collisions. Nice. Yes, that makes sense. So this one is about moving out of the screen for horizontal movement and for vertical movement. So this is width, and nope, yep, and this one is again like this, and this one width. Seriously? Yep. Nice. So what we can see here, height, half of height, because previously radius was half of a height, and now we have only full height. We can always make a special helper that would give us this half stuff, but I'm not sure that I need it that much right now. Okay, nice. If everything works as expected, we should start the program and be able to move it as it was in the beginning, with a slight twist. Previously there was a radius of 100, and now the width and height are of 100. And as you can see, calculations of collisions are working as expected. So our configuration, oh yes, diagonal movement which is not working right now. Sort of. No, that's fine. What was the... yeah, it should be like... yeah, like this. So technically there is a center. You can see it as this tip of triangle. It's in the center. So there is a square around it, and that is used for checking collisions. But now we have rotated square, and we have no logic that would use this data, and we're gonna change that. That's at least the point of current stream. So nice. At least I've checked that everything is working as expected after my changes. Yep, there are no more problems. Collisions work. Maybe we still have something like circle. No more circle. Right. So what else? There is a catch. So how do I understand that our player actually rotated somehow? We should know this by understanding his direction, and we definitely should calculate this direction. As I said, we always have these loop of iterations that we use as a basis of our program. So we start from setting up this loop with loading images and whatnot, configurations. Then we start the loop, and it works like that. Each 16th of a second, we check if keyboard has any pressed keys. Should we exit? For example, if there was a escape button pressed, then we check if we moved out of the screen, so we should like move back by coordinates. Then we check if we collided with any of rectangles that we configured in the beginning. Then we apply it accordingly. Then we clean the screen up and render first everything in the background and then our player on top of it. That's it. So this input handling stuff should be responsible for our calculations of what is the direction for our player. Is it looking to the bottom, to the top, to the left, to the right, or there is some diagonal stuff? Yep. Let's check it. I can see there is handle keyboard input. Okay, nice. Is key pressed, input state. That's not what I want. That's boring. So let's find the random method. It should be somewhere. And yep, we can see there is a check exit, and then we handle keyboard input. There is no more input, so that's the only place that we can check. Okay, we have this input state, and it's sort of a map. Yep, so we have direction, but it's not movement, right? Movement direction is nice, but how would we change our coordinates according to the keyboard state? We definitely should handle it somewhere. Calculate player collisions? No. This one. Interesting. The name, apply player input. I guess we have some magic involved there. Get polysprite, apply player input. Okay, timestamp, state. Okay. I haven't wrote it down. Input. Device input collision. Apply input to player to game entities. It's easier to call it a game, just to not call it something like super fun media concept or something. It's still a program. It's not full game, as you have no points or some loose win conditions, but to me it's still sort of like fun, doing stuff just for learning experience, nothing else. Okay, so we have this apply player input, and first we check, was there any input at all? Okay, if there was none, we just finish this. If, for example, there was some movement to the left, to the right, we have this x variable that is either -1 or 1. Okay, so then we have y variable, and then we get this direction. Oh, this is rotation, and we use this rotation with some trigonometry stuff, and we get the coordinates. Okay, sounds good enough. And we also save the rotation. Do I want to save it like that? Because there is this thing called direction, and I would love to use the direction. So that's the idea. I want to have 8 directions. That's why I created this structure called direction. There is north, east, south, and west, and there are also northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. There are some constants that should help me, but I don't care that much right now. The thing is that when I'm speaking about directions, I don't want to think about numbers. So if this number equals this number, then magic happens. It's sort of it will be difficult to think about it after some time will pass and some details will fade away from your memory. So if you could use some better naming or even classes in some cases, it would be much easier to understand what the heck is going on. So what is my suggestion? First of all, I want to have this direction as a separate variable. Direction. Yep. So now direction. Yep. Okay, that's fine. So this direction will be calculated here, and then when we need actual angles for our calculations, we'll get them from this. Like, why I would do this? Because I want to save this particular variable like this. State direction, state player, because it's a player who has direction. Direction. Nice. So there is an error because this part is missing. Intersector no, square no. So where is my file? Yes, it's in a rectangle entity. I want it to have public variable of direction. So the trick is that we always have a direction, and there is a starting direction of northeast, southwest. We always, what I'm saying, north, south is east, west. No, it's north, south, west, east. Yep, I'm doing it in a bit random order because like I just remember it better in that way. So I would say we usually start with direction of east. not Wild West, but where the sun rises. We are looking to the right. Nice. And anytime we would want to change it, that's it. Okay, we can save it. We can check if everything working as expected. La la la. Why it was moving so... It seemed to be moving faster. Maybe it's glitching only for me. So yes. And... Yep, and that's the case that we are trying to fix. Nice. So now we have data. We have this direction stuff. Direction can't be null, so it's always something. That's good point. So now we calculate player collisions with rectangles. And we have this logic for avatar. We have actually two cases. This one would create it for basic non-diagonal states, and we should have actually, I can do it like this. Direction float, get direction. Yep, so it's public static. It's not public, it's public. I want to have Boolean variable true false is diagonal, and it should state that it's diagonal. Return. Can I use this? Where I can't? No, like this, right? It's possible. If this equals to north, east, or nope, I said or this equals to northwest. Nope, this horrible keyboard. These equals to southeast, or these equals to southwest. And that would be the easy way to check if our direction has some diagonal component in it. Okay, so what we can check here, these, if our player direction is diagonal, we should calculate it in a really different manner, but for now, yep, maybe it's not the best way, but it's Java. There are some, I would say, some sad ways to describe this thing that I want. So the idea is that I want to have if case. If direction is diagonal, I want one behavior, like, and I mean I want this to be rotated accordingly to geometry, right? And if it's not diagonal, I want it to have the basic square shape that we already have here. So this shouldn't change anything, but we still can check it out, just to be sure that we are not breaking anything with this is diagonal stuff. Nice, nice. We move here. Yep. So now the question is, so you know that you have these like coordinates, you have width, you have height, and you really do know that you have angle that you can use to calculate. So we have Really? Nice. So we have this shape, and then we want to rotate it like this. What we do know about the original one? It has, so let's imagine that the center is like this. We know that the length of each side of a square is still the same even after rotation, but the coordinates, they change. So we definitely can see if there was this sort of horizontal line, then two sides have actually the height of 0. If I would draw it more like appropriately, you could see that it's like there would be like 4 dots. Oh, that's great. My drawing with mouse is superb. So this point has x of 0, and this one, while this one has y of 0, and this too. But it doesn't help me to understand what would be this distance, right? So the question is, if we have the distance, we know like one thing. We know this, so if we can call this length of a, we can be sure that this is also length of a. As it's a square, we can be sure that, but what if it's not a square? Oh, it would be a separate thing. It would require better understanding in diagonal. We would have more like ways to break our program if it will be a rectangle, because it would have at least 2 diagonal positions. One what it will be like looking, if it's a like tall something and you rotate it, it can be looking taller to this side or to this side. We will not check this right now, as it would make it even longer and it would be harder to be sure that our code is working as expected. So we'll for now we'll think about our player only as a square, right? So in this case we can be sure that not only this is a, but also this particular line and this line, they have the same length, because square contains like 4 triangles, with these triangles being rectangular. If they are rectangular, it says only about the angle here, but in our case all these triangles are also the same and they have like equal side. Why? Because this is the center and this is the line. If this line would be shorter, for example, could it be possible? So these angles should be the same because they have 90 degree. These lines should be the same. Yep, there is pretty much no way you could write x that has same sides, but x contains 2 lines of different length, for example. It's like pretty much impossible, just visually. You can give it a try if you have some matches at home or something. So, okay, I do know that I have this side thingy, yes, and I know this one is 90 degree, and if we decide that this is B and this is B, there is this formula that says that a square, not this square, but a multiplies a, equals b square plus b square. So it's like a equals to b multiplied by square root of 2. That's it. The only thing that I need is square root of 2, and I can make a constant for this. And I need b equals a divided by square root of 2. Because this line can't be longer than this line. Hypotenuse should be the longest one because it's like against the angle that is 90 degree. There can't be bigger angle in a triangle. Angle and triangle. Bah. A divided by square root of 2. And that's how I'm gonna get b. And if I have this b, I can calculate all the points that I need for state of a player. Nice. So let's get back to it. I would say assume we have square player for now. Float, and we would call it half diagonal, and it would be equal to player width divided by math squared c of 2. Yep, it should be like this because reasons. And we always, well, I mean, not reasons. It's just a bit boring task. You can see this red bulb and it says, if you click on it, cast to float. It doesn't help you to understand what is going on, but we have actually time for this. So if you're working with something like a string, for example, with a text, with anything, you usually don't care about like what type of string you have because it's always a string. But in computer science and in computer technologies, there is a huge difference in how easy it is to multiply things. If these things are integer and they have no like dot something something something, it's much easier to represent them and much easier to work with them. But if you have something like 2 dot something 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 something, you have sort of difficulties, and you get in a situation where it's, well, crunching multiple numbers like that, it's expensive, and sometimes you don't care about, I would say, accuracy of your calculations because it's something like hobby stuff. But in some case you want to have additional accuracy for your computations, and in that case you want to spend more of your program memory for storing the value, and you have two separate types for these floating point values. One of them is called float, and smaller one, it is like this, and integers are casted to float like internally. You don't need anything for this. If you would want to say that this is actually a long, it's still converted into float without issue. Converted happens when you specify to Java program, Java interpreter, that you want this particular value of long to be treated as a float, and there would be a special action performed that would allow this to happen. But what would happen if you, for example, know that float is sort of a short floating point value, and you use 2.0 double? Yes, so when I add this D, you may think that I'm crazy, that I'm adding some like letters to my numbers, but no, it's not the case of craziness. It's the case of limitations of our reality when we are working with computers. So in some cases we want to specify to our computer that I need more accuracy for my computations, and I would want to use not float but actually it's double precision float, and for short it's float. More accurate. Yep, so if you try to save more accurate in a float, there is an issue. So when you're trying to fit something small into bigger space, that's fine. It's like when you have this, like, you have huge fridge and you bought one carton of milk and you can put it easily. But what if you have this, like, you bought many, or at least not you bought, you have ordered something and you said that it probably will be something big. You ain't sure exactly because you haven't seen it in real life, but you said already that it's gonna be big. It's gonna be bigger than my fridge. Then you have a person who would try to put everything in your fridge, and how he gonna understand what should be like left out, what should be thrown away, and what should be like used? It's like not obvious, and computers are not good at like matching your expectation by magical understanding of your feelings and thoughts. So if you're trying to put something huge into something small, you actually losing something, and you should be aware of it. And Java, the language, tries its best to show you that, okay, now you have double precision. You spent your memory for this precision, so you wanna lose some of it. And I say, okay, I'm fine. I do know that I don't need accuracy like 2 dot and then 20 symbols after this. I'm fine if there will be only 10 symbols that are okay. And I say that I'm okay with casting these double precision number into floating number. That's what is happening in our case on this line, because player width is about float, but when you doing square root, if you press Ctrl, you can see the signature of the method, and you could see that it requires value of type double, and it returns the value of type double. That's a double precision. And when we divide something of type float with something of value of double, we actually convert this into double. Because one more thing, when we put something smaller into more accurate, it happens automatically. It doesn't say anything, because this new huge fridge can like take everything from your smaller fridge and there is no issue with it. But in this case, there's something happened that said that no, we are getting not float, we're getting double. And when you pressed here, it says cast to float. As you can see, IDE doesn't help you to learn why this is happening. You have to check it by yourself. But it actually makes it really easy to fix this issue. Be aware, IDE is not about helping you. It's about helping you to type something. So what else do we have here? Yep. So we do know this one is for diagonal. And as we checked here, there are 2 points that have x of 0 and 2 points with y of 0. Let's use it somehow. So now it's like top corner. Yep. This is right corner. This is bottom corner. And this is left corner. How would I calculate them? Okay, so top one has x of 0. And in my case, 0 plus x, where x is the center of my player. Okay, let's do it. And the bottom corner has the same property. I also know that right and left corners have y of 0. And that's how it got much shorter, right? So we have this player height half, Oh, half diagonal. Half diagonal. Yep, half diagonal. Yep. So we do know that our right corner, we should add half diagonal here. For top corner, we have to add half diagonal to the top. Bottom corner is the y minus, and the left corner is x minus. Nice, nice. So if my calculations were correct, then we should just run this application. And when again doing this tricky stuff with as you can see, there is like overlap of pretty much 1 pixel, and that's enough to consider them overlapped, that they collided. I guess we can find a way to check which exact part of our textures collided, but it doesn't matter right now. That was the part that I wanted to share and that I wanted to finish today, and I'm not sure that it was really easy to check what I was doing, but the main point is, like, if you want to spend your time in your hobby with some productivity, of course, the main requirement is to have fun. But one of the parts of having fun is to actually learning something and trying to use your knowledge for creating something that I would say looks cool, at least to you. Maybe it doesn't look cool to people who want to play Minecraft or to learn modding for other games. Yep, it's pretty much playing with geometry, but I mean, you can think of it like this. You may want to be a pro athlete. You want to be super special and great game designer, right? You want to write your games, you want to be able to build game engines and so on. It's like you want to be a pro athlete, you want to be able to jump high, you want to be super strong, but you don't want actually to learn to walk. Yep, you don't want to spend your time walking. Who would do this? And you wouldn't want to spend time like doing like training and stuff. You want the harder stuff from the beginning, and that is the easiest way how to get discouraged, because without proper, I would say, respect to this craft of trying to reuse mathematics for your enjoyment in programming, you can get into really hairy and messy stuff, and it can be really difficult when you combined multiple ideas of time and animation and these collisions in geometry, and you're trying to understand like how, and there is even an advice that try to understand what your code is doing. You should be like twice as smart as a person who wrote it. So if you're writing code the smartest as possible, then there is a chance that later you wouldn't be able to actually emulate its behavior in your head. And if you can't understand what is happening, you probably can't control it. And if you can't control it, you would just get mess on your hands. That's it. And for now, moving is pretty smooth, maybe a bit boring because there is no acceleration, but that's a different topic. I would need help of my friend if I would try to introduce this stuff. That's it. Yes, what would I do? I would definitely try to save all this stuff and publish it on GitHub. Give me some time. Yep. I think it's not that interesting because everyone is doing like steps of saving files and publishing them to GitHub in different way, and there is no much value in showing how it's done. Even programming itself is not that interesting if you show only the typing stuff, because you can solve multiple issues, multiple problems, multiple projects can be done in really different ways, and there is no one correct way. There are always some compromises. Like in that case, it can be done faster, but a bit unpredictable. In this case, it would be predictable, but it would take 3 years to finish the basic things. So you always have to choose your trade-off. And here is like the case. I'm using the approach that feels most natural to me. And as a person who is fond of, I would say, classical approach to programming, it can include something like command line interface, which is cryptic, to say the least. Diagonal, direction, directed player has right collision detection, and publish. Nice. So what, just a second. So yes, I started this stream and there were like 5 commits. Let's refresh. And now there are 6 of them. Yep, one of them added 23 seconds ago. And you can check that diagonally directed player has right collision detection. Doesn't matter. The main value is that if you check, you can see that I changed some of the documentation to make it easier for me later. I changed the name of some classes. Yep, I added these things that previously there was only radius, now there is a width and height. This one, why this happened, wouldn't true. I have no idea what's happening. What is this blue? What is it trying to convey? Okay, doesn't matter. I mean, it's the way, I guess, to see some code that is close to my changes. So I removed one rotation and now added direction that is also saved in a player state. Player now is a rectangle. It's more of a square, but who cares? We improved code for borders. We actually haven't checked it. Haven't checked it at all. Because I showed only the part where he's moving. So to the bottom. Oh, actually sucks. Sucks only to the bottom. Let me see. Okay, no, it doesn't suck, right? Yep, it sucks only because we have this white line at the top, so part of the screen is like lower than the bottom of the screen, so it can't be visible for me. But it's working as expected. We can't move out of the screen. Great, great. So the project is in working condition, and if I would need to change something else, it's pretty much okay. I don't have this circle entity anymore. I have this monstrosity, but I added some comments to make it easier for me to read. I wrote about some of my assumptions. Yep. There is this line about input. I showed you the stuff with direction. Probably is diagonal. Yep, definitely this would need some thinking again. It's sort of boring, but I would still call it a success for a project that is all about collision detection, right? So what I can say at the end of it all, I had some thoughts about programming as why all this weird stuff that I'm writing and it looks cryptic as hell, as heck, why it can't be considered an interesting hobby? I'm not saying that you like obliged to try to describe why your favorite hobby is fine, because some people like collect stamps, some people play sports, and they can say, "Oh, I'm getting like healthier," and you can say, "Oh, I'm making myself smarter," but actually, it's not the case. People can do stuff because they get some benefits, but it's not the main reason why they do some stuff. So, for example, my latest theory is that some people really enjoy, like I would say, magical and fantastic and fictional stuff with like magical rules that are still rules, and you can learn those rules and to create something in these magical worlds. Some people who play Dungeons and Dragons or any other game, or people who just enjoy books like Harry Potter or maybe Lord of the Rings, maybe even people who enjoy Star Wars, fairy tales and stuff. So these fictional stories, they show that on the one hand, people like stupid things, like things that don't exist, but it also shows that we have pretty much limitless imagination, and we can spend like hours if we find an interesting universe where we can think about and imagine what would happen if I changed this, what would happen if these two stars collided. And there are many, like if you try to do something with the physical world, with analog world, like, oh, I want to play guitar, like, fine, you need about 5 years and maybe you will be decent. Like, 5 years, it sounds like a commitment, right? And yes, because it is, because physical world, it would require huge effort. You would need multiple people to help you with this, and you would need them being around you, because in opposite case it will be like super difficult. But in case of reading a cool book, there are many great books. You don't need an author to have fun with it, because the main story happens inside your imagination, inside your head, inside your thinking process. When you think about you actually thinking deeply about different topics, and you imagine how they would happen, and you sort of feel attachment to different parts of this the longer you work with it. And it's sort of it doesn't become a second nature, but you sort of start looking on it in a different way. So if you have this like movie or a book that you read multiple times and it really like caught your attention and like enriched your imagination of like, oh, seriously, we could travel to the stars and there would be aliens and everything. Like, it has something special in it. Like, you can't describe it, but it's there. And I would say all this technical stuff like Java, Python, or like working as a developer, it's really cool. Yes, you can do all this stuff. But the most interesting stuff is if you can like move beyond the state when all this looks like cryptic and difficult and hard, and think about it as this magical universe where there are multiple like kingdoms and multiple forces, and you can do something there, because you wouldn't even imagine how many things are much easier to achieve right now than there were possible or even imaginable like 20 years ago. There is no other like area of human activity where we can have so many great things to do and so many great artifacts from other people, from other professional, which are so easily accessible. It's like it would be stupid to compare to anything in existence, like seriously. So yeah, I will stop my rambling mumbling. So the cool part about programming is not about writing text. It's not about solving other people's tasks. It's about feeling yourself at home when you imagine something you think is cool and you find a new cool way how to actually make it sort of real in this computer universe. That's the cool side of it. And I hope you would get some time to try to get the feeling of it. And if you would like find it interesting for you, then oh boy, you've got so many cool things to learn about. And what I'm doing is just like the 101 for like earliest developers. It's more about like the feel and less about the grand scheme of things or like grand projects. Would it even matter if you can do grand things but you dislike them, right? And if you really enjoy your craft, even some boring stuff can be cool, and you would find a way how to look at it in such a perspective that would make it a delight just to work with it. Yep. So thank you for your time. I hope we'll meet again soon, because I still need some stuff to finish if I really want to work with rectangles and their rotations. I'm not sure how useful is that, because I would have problems with my texture stuff. Would I want it or not? I'm not sure. So let's discuss it next time. And for now, thank you for your time and have a nice day. Goodbye.